Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got major class changes, dungeon redesigns, and Blizzard stating that PvP is designed not to be fair. If you were looking to have a relaxing Saturday, guess again, because Blizzard is coming in hot to make a statement with this news this weekend. By the way, if you're interested in earning a free copy of Diablo 4, the Comeback Kids are doing a giveaway, so make sure you stick around until the end of the video to earn a free copy for yourself. Now, with the recent announcement of new story and progress coming every single season with Diablo 4, a lot of people have had many questions about the Battle Pass. Now, if you don't know, the Battle Pass is going to have a free and paid option. With the players opting not to pay, they will receive less content. The price of Diablo 4's Battle Pass is confirmed to be $10, and even though the standard edition of the game is $70, the Battle Pass is not included. But if you're buying the Digital Deluxe Edition or the Ultimate Edition, the Battle Pass will be included in those game versions. Now, the exact details of what's included in the Battle Pass, like specific items and bonuses, haven't been shared with us yet. Based on information shared from developers, we can expect the following items: cosmetics, which will just customize the look of your in-game character to your choosing; premium currency, which you can then use to spend on cosmetic items or even save to buy in the next season's Battle Pass; and season boosts, which you can use to accelerate the rate at which your character gains XP and potentially other sources. The game's director, Joe Piapiora, also announced that the Battle Pass is going to take roughly 80 hours to complete in total. That being combined with the 80-ish hours it takes to reach level 100, you have one heck of a content-filled Diablo game. Now, fans are definitely going to be happy with taking the Battle Pass over countless microtransactions like they did in Diablo Immortal. I mean, a fleshed out Battle Pass can definitely bring players exciting and useful actual cosmetics and items at a fair price for what you're actually paying. Now, all this information getting out there doesn't mean fans aren't still worried about the game potentially becoming pay to win. It doesn't actually bring hope to the fans when they could potentially add more season boost or potential microtransactions that can be added for the benefit of the player. Now, if you're concerned about Diablo 4 just being an MMORPG, the game's director is here to assure you that isn't going to be the case. In a recent roundtable interview, Joe was asked about whether the end game will lean further into MMO qualities that are present in Diablo 4 as well as Diablo Immortal. Joe stated, "We're not really making an MMO, we are making an online game that does have that connected community feel in some spaces, and that features are going to serve the game that we've made." Piapiora was adamant that we're not looking to make that MMO game, if that makes sense. Now, we do have to remember that Diablo 4 is a live service game, and they're going to do everything in their power to keep players playing, which is most likely them just going to be following the ARPG formula, which is catering to the season style of play, as well as bringing super fun, engaging gameplay in a hack and slash style like Diablo 4 as an ARPG. Moving on to other news, if you're a big PvP fan, it's time to listen up because the Fields of Hatred are not going to be designed to be fair. Now, Diablo 4's PvP activity is the Fields of Hatred, which allows players to enter a zone in a free-for-all like format to battle monsters as well as other players and compete to get shards to then use on getting gear. Joe stated that the PvP endgame activity does have systems in place to ensure relative equality, but make no mistake, it's not designed to be fair. The lead game producer, Kaylee Calder, explains that while there isn't matchmaking, you won't find another player too far behind your item and power level. There will be some variation, just not enough to see a group of experienced players gang up on someone entering the fields for the first time. The game director states, "Beating another player comes down to your PvP build rather than your class winning against theirs in a game of rock, paper, scissors. That getting the drop on someone when they're not looking is even more advantageous than that." He also explained that this isn't a dueling system, and that's not what the Fields of Hatred are, and it's a murder ground and not a place for honor. He also emphasized that skill is going to come into effect heavily, as well as if your enemies are fighting in an event to try and defeat a boss. Do remember, ladies and gentlemen, that PvP in Diablo 4 is going to be 100% optional, and that the only exclusive rewards tied to that game mode are cosmetic in nature. So when it comes to Diablo 4 PvP, grab your friends and get ready to fight dirty, because in the Fields of Hatred, it's not going to be a solo experience. Okay, now moving on to today's big headline. There have been massive changes all across Diablo 4, and we got the first official look at it. There are big class changes with buffs and nerfs coming in, dungeon redesigns, UI redesigns, as well as boss encounters being changed, and even Cellars being tuned up as well. The developers actually reviewed data from the player feedback on the open beta weekends and have made some very big changes to the game overall. Now, one of the biggest concerns about players in Diablo 4 was the dungeon design. The devs became aware of this and they noticed that players were doing a lot of backtracking when it comes to certain dungeons and doing certain dungeon mechanics. With that, they heavily optimized multiple dungeons across all of the zones in Sanctuary, minimizing the need to actually backtrack, giving a really big sigh of relief to the player base out there, as well as showing how much they listen and care about our feedback in general. Their goal with the layout changes was to reduce backtracking, and now many of their structure objectives have been repositioned along main side dungeon pathways, making it much easier for players to complete and explore the dungeon overall. Even dungeon events are being changed from having a chance for an event to spawn inside of a dungeon, going from 10% all the way up to 60%. This will allow players a much greater chance at having random encounters applied to their dungeon, giving them more opportunity at loot and experiencing something brand new they've never seen before. Even more changes include reducing the time it takes to complete objectives, having smaller numbers of straggling monsters to help complete the kill all monster objectives, giving bonus movement speed while you carry objectives, and generating mini-map pings when doors are opened. They're hoping these changes will help streamline and vary the experience of completing objectives, and that this is just the starting point, and they intend to extend this philosophy and game-changing aspect into future updates. Alright, now moving on to some general changes, you have effects like stun and freeze can now be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable, and they also went through all classes to confirm they have access to sufficient skills that remove crowd control. And lastly, they have done major tuning to legendary powers with their overall effectiveness. Now, they didn't get into detail about the legendary's power specifically on what got buffed and nerfed, but this is definitely a great starting point. Alright, now heading into the class changes, the real juice of today's show, the Barbarian. Everyone knows that the class performed a little bit weaker than the rest, and Blizzard has definitely noticed this. The Barbarian is now getting a 10% passive flat damage mitigation, and to make up for this, some of their passives along the tree got tuned up a little bit so that it doesn't get out of control. We are also seeing buffs to Whirlwind, making it deal more damage but consuming more Fury, and Double Swing's enchantment refunds all of the Fury cost when used on a stunned or knocked down enemy. Now listen, if you played Barbarian in the open beta, damage was not the actual problem of this class. It was the fact that they are a melee class combined with the fact that they felt very squishy compared to other classes when our Barbarian should feel a lot more tanky, a lot more beefy. Them implementing some damage reduction into the class's kit passively definitely helps with the class's survivability, and then they also tuned up some of the more under-tuned abilities overall, giving you more variety of play. Now, moving on to one of the stronger classes in the beta was the Sorcerer. Sorcerers did need a bit of tuning, and based on player feedback, Blizzard did know that. They did decrease the damage on Chain Lightning while bringing up some other abilities like Charged Bolts, Firewall, and Incinerate. They buffed Charged Bolts' damage and reduced the mana cost, and increased the enhancement activation chance for Firewall and Meteor, and they also buffed Incinerate's enchantment bonus, allowing Fire Hydras to spawn more frequently. Moving on to the Rogue, they were pretty vague with their class's changes overall. They simply stated that bonuses to Subterfuge have had their bonuses increased, as well as the passives along their skill tree have been increased as well. They did, however, state that imbuements felt a little bit too strong, and they hired the cooldown on imbuements, reducing the time which you can activate them in succession. Now, Blizzard also noted that Necromancer felt very overtuned, and they are definitely trying to change that. So they simply flat out said that their minions are going to die more often, requiring players to utilize corpses for minions more often, and the damage dealt by corpse explosion has been reduced. Now, to make up for some of these nerfs, they did state that the Book of the Dead passives have been tuned up and increased as well. It seems like the Druid is definitely going to get the biggest changes out of all the classes so far, buffing their companion damage across the board by a very big amount, and the cooldowns on all their ultimate skills actually being reduced. On top of it, they also included some usability improvements on Maul and Pulverize. The developer stated that the goal of the changes is to make sure class skills feel impactful and powerful. They noticed that some classes were too powerful, and they've made changes to that. Launch is just the first step of our class balance journey, and you can expect further updates that iterate on this pillar further. To help melee classes even more, they reevaluated some bosses for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes to attacks and fight mechanics overall. They're also reevaluating the Butcher for difficulty, and he will even present a greater challenges in World Tier 3 and 4. They also felt as if Cellars were a bit unrewarding, and they increased the chance for a dungeon event to occur inside of Cellars, as well as them now consistently rewarding a chest upon completion. Now listen, we all knew that Blizzard was going to be making changes before launch and, tuning things up to the player base's liking. But man, making all of these changes within just a few weeks of the beta actually happening shows how much effort and dedication they are actually putting toward Diablo 4 as a game, and really easing the community overall, because the community has been in a bit of a disarray lately for some of the gameplay aspects and features, as well as the endgame update video. Them coming out with this brand new information to help ease the fans is definitely 100% going to help. Now, this doesn't solve every problem that the players have, especially when it comes to the potential of additional microtransactions on the Battle Pass, and the fact that in order to PvP, you're going into a free-for-all zone where you're forced to group up in order to participate. Because if you don't, you will simply just be outnumbered and lose. We're still very hopeful that they will implement additional game modes and options post-launch, and they did announce that already more things are coming. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in earning a free Diablo 4 game copy, click the link in the bio to learn more information on how to win that. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be all for the news today on Diablo 4. It's a very big week. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I appreciate all the love and support. It is an absolute pleasure to be making content for you all. And until the very end, my name's Sky from the Comeback Kids, and I'll see you all in the next one. Hey!